All right, today I'm going to talk about something I get a lot of messages about. As you can see, this is a G35 coupe. It originally came with a VQ35DE, something like that. And now it has a VQ37VHR you'd find in a 370Z, G37, FX30, basically every Infiniti and the 370Z. Now, I see a lot of nonsense on the internet talking about how hard this swap is. Oh, it's way too much work, it's impossible. They're all wrong, and I'm going to explain it to you. This is probably one of the easiest engine swaps you could do in any platform. So first of all, I'll answer some really simple questions that I see a lot. You need the engine and transmission from a car that had a 3.7. The original transmission does not work. If you have a 350Z HR, yes, you can reuse your transmission. I blew up a few DEs. I run this car on track. I decided it's probably not worth it to put another one in. Despite what you might see online, DEs with full bolt-ons, headers, everything, rarely make more than 260 wheel horsepower. The bolt-ons themselves cost almost as much money as an entire VHR, and these will make 280 bone stock, no mods, no tune, just straight out of the box. You can purchase a VHR motor, just the motor with the engine harness, usually for somewhere between, let's say, $1,000 and $2,000 depending on the mileage. I spent $1,500 on this one. This was a JDM motor. It had 55,000 miles. I took apart the timing cover, inspected everything, did gallery gaskets before I put it in the car, and it was really clean. This car has Guilty Garage 3-inch intakes and ISR long tube headers and nothing else, and it made 338 wheel horsepower on a dyno jet. That's almost 100 horsepower more than my DE made, with basically the same mods plus a lot more. This car is significantly faster. This is one of those motors where the power number might not seem super impressive, but this car is a lot faster than the 338 horsepower number it gives off. It revs to 8 grand. It's a lot of fun, makes a lot of noise. I'm going to outline everything you need for the swap, and it's really not that complicated. Now, we'll get one thing out of the way right away. The motor and transmission bolt up directly to the original mounts. You do not need to do anything special. The only difficult part about this swap is the wiring. And if you're going to pay for a wiring service, like I'm going to mention here in a minute, you don't even have to think about any of that. So the best way to do this is, if you have a running DE and CD09 or similar transmission, you could take that out of the car and sell it probably for $1,000 to $3,000 depending on the mileage and condition. You can go buy a VHR and a transmission for about the same, maybe a little more. VHR transmissions tend to be a little bit more expensive, but you can find these motors everywhere. Eric from Guilty Garage, who made the wiring harness for this car, actually recommends that you go for all-wheel drive, G37X, FX37, EX37, something like that, because those motors are much less likely to have been beat on. And the only thing you need to do to make them fit is change out the upper oil pan to a rear-wheel drive one. And technically, you don't even need to do that. The only difficult part about this swap is the fact that you have to go to the junkyard and obtain the VVEL harness from a car that originally came with a 3.7. So I have a relocated battery, and I have all the stuff hidden in here. You can see the VVEL module, the positive terminal going to the battery, and some wiring that came with the swap harness. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your junkyard, find a car, and you're going to cut off a section of the body harness that you can find in the battery tray area. It may look really intimidating, but it's not. All you got to do is remove some small stuff from the battery tray area, cut in the 2 spots listed on the Guilty Garage website, send it to Eric, and you will get a returned custom plug-and-play VQ37 harness for your DE or HR chassis even. Now, I can't speak on AC because this is a track car and I don't have air conditioning, but everything else works as normal except for the radiator fans. The gauges work, your speedometer works correctly, the tach works correctly, the temperature gauge works correctly. Everything just acts as if this motor came in this car. This is a very, very simple and straightforward swap. As I already mentioned before, the motor itself bolts directly up in the chassis. There's a very short list of things you need to do to make this work with your DE car. First of all, you're going to need to cut some holes for the intakes to pass through. And if you have stock intakes or a shorty intake, you don't even have to do that. You're gonna have to make your own upper radiator hose. Now, what I did is I bought a DE lower radiator hose and I just cut it. This is $20 part at most, or you could just steal one from the junkyard. This works perfectly fine. I have a stock DE radiator. I'm utilizing this GK Tech swirl pot, which continuously bleeds the cooling system while the car is running. So my cooling setup is a little bit different than normal, but just capped off the breather or the overflow port here. I have this aluminum overflow catch can from Amazon, it was probably $20, and that all feeds in or gets fed from the swirl pot. The only thing from the DE that you really need to get rid of that won't work is the coolant reservoir, because the intake's in the way. So you need to swap to something like this anyway, but this is pretty cheap, pretty simple, not really an issue for anybody. Other than that, the only interesting thing you have to do with this is you have to connect the original brake booster line to the plenum. Now, you cannot replace this. The original line that went to the DE plenum is just tucked under this intake here. It has a check valve in it. The brake booster can only see vacuum. It cannot see positive pressure. You won't have any brakes if this check valve is removed, or rather, your brakes will be very stiff if you remove the check valve. So what I did is I just got a male-to-male fitting and attached this hose from the original hose to the plenum, and that's about it. I can't really think of anything else difficult that you have to do for this swap. I have open breathers, which is something most people would do anyway, but other than that, really everything just bolts up. You take the harness that he sends you and you feed it through here, and then under the dash here you'll see this big bundle that plugs into the ECU and the IPDM, and you just crank the car up. That's it. One other thing that you'll see here is that it comes with this Arduino module that you plug into your OBD port. This is what translates the signal for the dashboard to allow the gauges to work. And that's really it. I wanted to make a long video explaining this and showing in-depth installation tips and whatnot, but there really is none. This motor just goes into this car, and as these cars age, this is probably the direction most people would want to go. If you blow up your DE, you can sell your original stuff and recoup most of the money. The harness adapter kit is $1,000 or $1,200, something like that. Or the whole harness construction service is $1,200 if I remember correctly. You send him the engine harness and the body harness from the VHR car that you cut off at the junkyard, and that's really it. Obviously you have to have a VHR ECU, but you could probably just steal that from the same car you got the body harness from. A lot of people look at the numbers on paper and say it's not worth it to do this swap because they're looking at the total cost and saying, oh, I'm only gaining 50 horsepower, whatever. That's not true. It's going to be closer to 100, first of all. And second of all, this is significantly cheaper and easier to deal with than any kind of LS or other swaps that you may be interested in. This goes right in the car. It uses all OEM accessories. When you have problems with the motor, you look up how to fix X, Y, and Z on a VHR, and you go from there. This stuff is really easy. This motor's been dead reliable. I beat the shit out of it on track this year. I haven't had a single issue with the motor. Not even a check engine light. No sensor has gone bad. It doesn't leak like it doesn't leak like a DE. It doesn't burn oil like a DE. It's bone dry everywhere. If you stick to stock parts, this is an easy swap, and you could easily drive this car around every day with no issues. The only thing that doesn't work that you might see missing here is the radiator fans. I don't have radiator fans because this is a track car. It's either off or it's moving, so radiator fans don't really do anything. But if you really need radiator fans and you're going to daily this car, you can just wire them into the ignition. Just get a simple 2-wire fan for, I don't know, 50, $100 from Jag, Summit, any place like that. Put that on your radiator and then wire it into the ignition so it comes on when the car starts, or wire it to a switch and turn it on yourself. It's that simple. This is I'd say 3 out of 10 difficulty as far as swaps go. It is exactly the same amount of effort as putting another DE in the car. So if you blow up your DE and you're not going this direction, I'd say you're kind of silly. This is barely more money for way more performance, and I'm not really a big fan of boosted stuff, but if you did want to boost it, this is a way better option. You could throw a supercharger kit on this or twin turbos. It'll fit no problem. It'll make 400, 500, 600 horsepower even on stock internals. Not on a track car, but on a normal street car, you could easily run that on this motor and not have any issues with heat rods taking a trip to the moon or anything like that. Also, as time goes on, it's really hard to find clean DE motors. They didn't make, well, I shouldn't say that. They made a lot of them, but most of them got ratted out. A lot of those cars now have 200,000-300,000 miles. The chances you're going to find a 20-something-year-old motor with reasonable mileage is really low in 2026. And as time goes on, more and more of these cars, EX37s, FX37s, G37X, M37X, all those cars are going to be aging out, and when they get crashed, they're not going to get fixed. And there are plenty of those cars who are dealer maintained and have low mileage. These motors are going to be a dime a dozen for the next 20 years. I haven't looked into the total production numbers, but I'd be willing to bet that over 1 million vehicles were produced with this motor, and they're all the same. Doesn't matter which model you get it from. With these mods, it'll make well over 300 horsepower fairly easily and reliably.